Hi guys, so in this video today, I am going to talk about future faking. Like, what the heck is future faking? So if you like this content, feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. If you push the little bell, you'll get notified when new content becomes available. And if you are interested in private coaching, go to www.coachkat.org. If you go to the services page, there are you can see the charges or the bill or how much it will cost you, and you can read about some of the things that I can help you with to overcome this narcissistically abusive relationship. I work hand in hand in partnership with people doing their own work, so it's really up to you to do your work, but I'm happy to help walk that path with you and help you to overcome some of the trauma. So let's get back to future faking. So what is future faking? Okay, well, you know what it is. If you've been in a relationship with one of these people, you know it's all about love bombing. These people love bomb you. And in the beginning, there's future faking. They may say, what kind of a wedding would you like? That was a personal example. And, I was like, I've always wanted to get married at Torrey Pines and on the beach with my friends, a small wedding in the forest. And, I love the woods. So that's future faking if they have no intention of really marrying you, or you don't get married for 5 years after that conversation and you get married like at the courthouse, right? That was my example. But future faking is, we're going to get married, we're going to have children, we're going to go travel the world, I'm your soulmate, we're going to be together forever, we're going to grow old together, you're so amazing, we're going to blah, 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 right? Future faking. This is what narcs do. They talk about the, grandiose, and they can be very grandiose, or they can just be, things that you want. They're very good at honing in on whatever, like your true desires, your true, dreams are, and they will play into those dreams. And, we're going to do this amazing adventure together, or we'll be together forever, or we're going to get married, or we're going to do this or that. Future faking, okay? So that is where their actions don't match their words. Now, on a smaller level, it can be like, I'll call you later, and they don't. If that happens one time, I'll call you later, and they don't, okay, no problem. But if there is this pattern of I'll call you later and over and over and over again, they don't keep their word. If it's habitual, it's a problem. So future faking, they make promises, they listen, and they figure out what you want to hear. They can talk about, again, like wanting a family, wanting to get married, traveling, whatever. They tell you all the things that you hope for, your dreams, your wants, your desires. And they will tell you that they may tell you that they'll take care of you financially. I got you, babe, or you don't have to work, or you could go back to school, or whatever they say. Then what they'll do is, sometimes if they're a narcissist that actually has money, they will render you financially dependent on them. And this gives them incredible control over you. But then simultaneously, they will also shame you at the same time. So they will render you financially dependent and then shame you for it. And they love this because it gives them control over you, and it makes it really hard for you to leave. And, you can, this is the function of future faking, is it's to distract you. It's to keep you distracted and like focusing on the future and all the dreams and hopes and wonderful things you're going to do. When in reality, they are manipulating, lying, gaslighting, cheating on you, having a double life, hooking up with prostitutes, going on dating sites, whatever it is they're doing, right? Another future faking could be, we're buying this house together, and then they never get you on title, but they open a joint bank account the day after it closes escrow for you to start paying the mortgage. They allow you to pay the property taxes. They let your friends and family come and remodel the home at cost. You do all the work to maintain it, and they don't keep you on title. They block you from title. That's a personal example that happened to me. So we're buying a house together. Well, future faking. That's a lie if they don't put your name on title. That's blocking you. That's very duplicitous. And, they do this so that they can get what they want, right? So they're going to promise you, they're going to future fake and get you all invested in the future so that they can keep you distracted from what they're doing in the present. It's basically a psychological Ponzi scheme. You are being duped. These people are they are con artists. Be careful of anyone whose favorite movie is the film Catch Me If You Can. I don't know if you've seen that, but that's another personal experience story. That movie is about a con artist, a brilliant con artist who pretended to be an airplane pilot, I think, and a doctor and all these different things, right? Loved to be a spy. So, future faking is where you're focusing on this shared amazing future that you're going to have together, and they're distracting you from what they're doing in the moment. This is where, especially if this stuff is happening early on in a relationship, anyone who's telling you that they're madly in love with you and they've only met you 2 weeks earlier, anyone's talking about marriage like right away, or even just this future life you're going to have together right away, or we're going to get, we're soulmates, we're going to buy a house, we're going to get married on the cliffs at Torrey Pines, like we're going to do all, anyone who's talking like that, I would say, be careful, be skeptical, be slow with people, because somebody cannot really love you, I don't think, in a couple of weeks because they don't know you. So really, it takes time to get to know people. And I have become so cautious with getting to know new people. I have, lots of people that would love to date me or whatever, or want to date me, but I'm in this careful place where I'm very, careful about who I am letting into my inner space. I don't want future fakers. I don't want con artists. I don't want bullshitters. I don't want cluster B. I don't want narcissists. I don't want sociopaths. I don't want psychopaths. I do not and will not be in a toxic relationship again. And one of the ways that I've developed, or not developed, but within myself, how to avoid a toxic relationship is this very simple thing. I am learning good, healthy boundaries, right? So there is a 4-step, very clear process for setting healthy boundaries. I've made a video on it. I'm probably going to mention this a lot because I think repetition is very important. There are 4 steps to setting healthy boundaries, okay? 1, you write down what your boundaries are. What are boundaries? They're limits. They are modes of operation. They're expectations of how you expect to be treated. So write down what your boundaries are. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to work through an example. Okay, one of the boundaries I have is in a committed relationship, I require emotional and sexual monogamy and fidelity. That's one of my boundaries. Not everyone has that same boundary. Some people are in open relationships. They don't have that same boundary. They have a different boundary. That is one of my boundaries. If I'm going to be in a committed relationship, I want it to be sexually and emotionally faithful. That means you don't have emotional affairs or sexual affairs with other people, right? That's one of my boundaries. Write that down. Get very clear on that. Okay, great. That's number 1. 2, the second step with healthy boundaries is communicate the boundary to the person. Hey, Mr. XYZ or Mrs. XYZ, in a committed relationship, for me, what I require is sexual and emotional fidelity and monogamy. Do you understand that that is my boundary? Okay. And then you say to them, can you tell me what I just said or what I'm getting at? Can you, give me some feedback, and make sure in that second step that they understand that that is your boundary. That's your expectation. Make sure that they clearly understand that. That's number 2. Okay. Now, in this process, in this particular process, you can also have a consequence. And I'm going to talk about the consequence in step 4. So number 1, write down your boundary, know what it is. Number 2, clearly communicate your boundary to the person and make sure to get feedback from them that they understand what your boundary is. Okay. 3, hold your boundary. Now, if you're codependent, this is where we struggle. Hold your boundary. You also need to stick to your boundary and respect your own boundary. You cannot set a boundary and expect them to be faithful, sexually and emotionally faithful if you're not. So you also need to respect your own boundaries, right? And adhere to them and not be a hypocrite. So there's that, right? But holding your boundary. And then step four is the consequence if the boundary is violated. So 1, know what your boundary is, so write it down. 2, communicate what your boundary is. 3, hold your boundary, right? 4, consequence if the boundary is violated. This goes back to step 2. Step 2, you also need to, at that point, communicate what the consequence is. Maybe for you, the consequence is, and if you violate this boundary, then I will permanently exit the relationship. That's the consequence. And then if that happens in step 4, then you need to permanently exit the relationship. Now, you may not want to have boundaries that are that strong. Maybe your boundary is, if that happens, I will give you one opportunity to go to therapy or deal with whatever it is that you've got going on there, the sex addiction, or if there's alcoholism or substance use or whatever there is, or your mental health problems. I will give you one chance, but if it happens again, then I will exit the relationship. I mean, that may be a soft one for you. For me, it's not. It's pretty black and white in that regard, but you may have a little bit looser boundaries. That's fine, as long as you know what the consequence is. As long as you have a clear idea of what the consequence is. It may be, then we will file for legal separation and I will give you 6 months to deal with whatever you're dealing with and your stuff, so that you are able and capable of sexual and emotional fidelity, right? And so, when I look back actually on the relationship that I was in, I realized that I actually did a pretty good job in that I did know what my boundary was, and I communicated that clear expectation about emotional, mental, and physical fidelity and monogamy. I even have it written in this workbook that I did with the narcissist I was with when I was early on in the relationship with him. I have it written down, and he clearly understood that that was all my expectation, and he said that that was also his expectation. He was probably mirroring me, and I don't think he even thinks like that. I think he's probably always been sort of unfaithful, so I doubt that that was the truth, but he definitely, I have it in writing that that was his way of thinking as well, supposedly. And then 3, holding the boundary, I did the best I could. And then 4, when I found out that there was infidelity, I did exit the relationship. The unfortunate part was I didn't find out for over a decade. And it could have been going on the whole time. I don't really know for sure, but it was definitely that affair was a long-term affair. And I think it was multiple affairs. So, it's sort of like one of those things where you're like, so I guess in that case, I feel like I actually did do a pretty good job with that boundary. But then there was other boundaries that I was really unclear on, like getting my name on the title. I should have, been much more strong advocating for that also. And I just should have had very clean boundaries. Like, I'm not going to pay $300,000 into a house where my name's not on title. That's an example where my boundaries were porous. I'll never do that again. I will never, ever. In fact, I'm in the process of buying a house and my name's going on title and it's not even a question. So, that's just one of those things where it's like, no, that's a boundary. But when I was first with the narcissist that I was with, I was only a few days sober, and I had, pretty decidedly low self-esteem. So as the years went on, I started doing, I got sober. I did a lot of step work. I did a lot of, healing. I went to Codependence Anonymous. I started addressing my codependence. I started learning what boundaries were. I didn't know what boundaries were. I grew up in a family that had incredible enmeshment and very unhealthy boundaries. And my boundaries as a child were violated egregiously in multiple different ways. So I didn't know what they were. It was like learning a new language. And I bet a lot of you people that are in this community, you struggled because your boundaries were probably violated, sometimes by the people that you were supposed to be able to trust the most. So many of our the empaths and the codependents and the beautiful people that are in this community have been, had sexual abuse, have had physical abuse, have had mental abuse, have had psychological abuse, verbal abuse. A lot of us have been, had narcissism or addiction in our families. So, we are all, most of us anyway, that I've seen are trauma survivors that learn codependence as an adaptive strategy to survive our childhoods. And quite frankly, people pleasing can be a very smart adaptive survival mechanism if you're with people that are dangerous, in some level, it's a very intelligent adaptive strategy. I would argue that as an adult, people pleasing at your own detriment is actually lying, because if you say yes when internally you really mean no, you are chipping away at your self-esteem, and you're being fundamentally dishonest with yourself and others. So I know it's weird to look at that as lying, but when I say yes, when I really mean no, and then I resent somebody for it, like, whose problem really is that? So, this is a really long tangent of a video, but if there's something to learn from this, I think it would be that really we are, this experience that you had with a narcissist or a psychopath or a sociopath, as egregious as it was, as awful as it was, as mixed bag as it was, because there was probably amazing love bombing. Nobody would stay in these relationships if there wasn't really good times. So it's probably amazing love bombing coupled with, this intermittent reinforcement where there's love bombing, and then there's withdrawal, stonewalling, gaslighting, silent treatment, abuse, emotional and psychological abuse, cheating, lying, manipulation, right? But it's the juxtaposition is it's this intermittent reinforcement with this love bombing. So it's just like you're on this roller coaster. And of course, psychologists know that intermittent reinforcement is one of the strongest ways to get somebody to like bond with you or to tie with you, right? So I realized that this was a mixed bag. Obviously, none of us would have stayed as long as we did had there not been a lot of good times. But, the future faking, a lot of that stuff never happened, right? You didn't end up buying a house together. You didn't end up having a beautiful life together. This was not your soulmate. These people, you didn't get the wedding on Torrey Pines. You didn't get any of the things they promised. They're full of crap. So, being able to realize that was false and that was a delusion. You didn't promulgate it, but it was a delusion, right? And so recognizing that is very important. And then also recognizing that these people are our teachers. They are a gift, because the pain was it could have been so intense for you that you may do the work you need to do to face your codependence and to heal from that, and stop saying yes when you really mean no, and stop having more empathy for other people than you have for yourself, and stop, relegating your needs and wants and desires below somebody else's because you think that they're better than you, or they're smarter than you, or they deserve more than you. Stop putting other people above yourself. Have at least an equal amount of empathy for yourself as you show to other people. Because if you're a codependent, sort of an empath, you're probably a little bit of a pathological giver. Narcissists are pathologically selfish and toxic takers, and you might be a pathological giver. So start learning how to rein that in, and that time with you is a privilege. And your generosity of spirit and your heart is wonderful, but you've got to be able to develop some discernment so that you're giving without depleting yourself. When the plane is going down, it's so vital that you put your oxygen mask on before you try to put the oxygen masks on the children, because you're not going to be able to save your kids if you're dead. So I hope this makes sense. Again, I know this is kind of a rambling video, but if you like this content and if you want some help to be coached through these steps and to get over this relationship and to learn how to go no contact and to learn how to deal with some of that grief and that trauma and that deep-seated abandonment wounding from your childhood, contact me, and I'd be happy to offer some private customized coaching to help you. And again, it's www.coachkat, and it's kat.org. And like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.